Today in the world of book writing, book publishing, and book marketing, I welcome you all to our premier Nonfiction Master Course. Our 10 hand-picked speakers are ready to give their all, so I hope you're in a comfortable spot and ready to take notes. Today I want to welcome Michele DeFilippo, and she's going to present Design Your Book Cover Like a Pro. Michele owns 1106 Design, a Phoenix company that offers top-quality book cover and interior design, editing, author websites, and holds your hand every step of the way. But creating a great book is only the first step. Indie publishers face a blizzard of choices. Michele's coaching can help you analyze the options and choose the solutions that best advance your publishing goals. So here's Michele.
Thank you, Judy, for that introduction, and thank you, everybody, for being here today. I very much appreciate that you signed up for this course and you paid your fee, and my goal today is to deliver real value to you so that you come away from this course knowing exactly what you need to do to work with a cover designer and prepare your book for the brutal book publishing marketplace. Now, I have to explain, I have a little bit of a cold today, so you may hear me clearing my throat a little bit. I apologize in advance. I'll try to keep that to a minimum. So I expect that many of you listening right now are getting ready to develop your book cover or maybe redevelop your book cover if you started and published your book already and you just want to refresh it. I talk with authors all of the time who understand that a book cover can make or break your book. They want to do the right thing and not make a mistake, but they're overwhelmed with the amount of information available online on the topic. Now, aren't we all, right? You go to Google, and no matter what topic you're looking for, you type it into the search box, and there are 88,000 pages that you can review and find out what you want. Nobody can do that. So my goal today is to make your job a little bit easier by getting back to the basics and explaining how traditional publishers approach the book cover design process. It's very different than the way many self-publishers approach the process, and it's very different from the way that many people will instruct you on how to produce your book cover. Just like in any other industry, best practices have evolved in publishing. And they've evolved because they work to sell books. So if you adhere to these best practices, it will put you on solid ground, especially if you're publishing a book for the first time. So I hope everybody has the handout today, because what we're going to do is look at a lot of best-selling covers so that you can keep your design on track and recognize when it's going off track. And we're also going to talk about your book cover text, which can also make or break your book cover. And finally, I'll close with some tips on how to qualify a book cover designer and find the one who is right for you so that you can enjoy the process and get the cover you envision and also get your money's worth. I want your cover to stop buyers in their tracks, so that when Amazon displays a dozen other covers next to your cover, and those covers are going to be the best sellers, buyers will feel safe buying your book because it looks just as good as the best sellers. And as Warren and Judy just explained, I'll take your questions at the end of the session. I'll stay on the line as long as you need until all of the questions are answered. So if that sounds good to everybody, I will begin. If you open the handout that I sent, we can go directly to slide 2. And we can begin with the question, what is a book cover? Now, that sounds like a very silly question, doesn't it? But many people think that a book cover creation is a very simple task. Find a picture, add a title. But this is not correct. Your book cover is actually a retail package that tells the world about your book. We buy books in exactly the same way we buy any other retail product, whether it's cereal, shampoo, windshield wipers, whatever it is. Something about the package grabs our attention. The largest text on the package makes a promise. And then the details on the package convince us that this is the product we want to buy instead of the one that's right beside it on the shelf, or in our case on Amazon. So when we look at any package, we're asking ourselves one question, aren't we? What's in it for me? Your book cover has to answer that single question for your buyer in about 3 seconds. So that's a pretty big job. So how do we begin to answer that question? How should your book cover look? The answer is it depends. What is your book about? Who is your audience? What exactly are you selling them? The answer to those 3 questions determine the look of your book cover. Now, I know this is a nonfiction course, but I'm going to start by showing 3 fiction covers here because I need to make a point. If your book is fiction, then you're selling entertainment and intrigue and romance and adventure and escape, right? So the title and the graphics should pique the buyer's curiosity and hint at the story, but the cover of a fiction book should never satisfy that curiosity or give away the story. We want the reader to imagine that this is a good book, and we want them to buy it. There are different ways to do this, of course. Sometimes the author's name dominates the design, as in the Stephen King book there. Sometimes there's a small but meaningful graphic, as on the middle cover, a razor blade. Wow, what's that book? What is that book about? And sometimes the image and the title are of equal importance, as on the Martian cover. If you're selling nonfiction, you have an entirely different task ahead of you. Your nonfiction book sells information. In nonfiction, the title, the cover text, and the graphics have to show and tell the buyer exactly what is between the covers of your book to move them toward that purchase decision. On the left, Wheat Belly is a cookbook that asks us to give up bread and pasta, which is unthinkable to most of us. So the publisher has a task here. How do we reassure the buyer that the idea isn't as crazy as we would automatically assume? How does the publisher do that? They have a subtitle, 30-minute recipes, 200 of them, pictures of food that looks normal. This encourages us to give it a try, right? 200 recipes, I'm bound to like 1 or 2 of them. 30 minutes, great, I'm busy. I can't spend a lot of time cooking. I'll give this cookbook a try. In the middle book, Laugh Out Loud Jokes for Kids, the font choices are very old-fashioned. Now, why would the publisher do that? Old-fashioned fonts send a message to the parents who are buying this book that this book is safe for their kids to buy. It harkens back to the age when you could send your kids to the library and you didn't have to worry what they checked out. Everything was safe. That's the message of this cover. And on the third cover, Humans of New York, it uses pictures to tell us that this is, well, a picture book about the people in New York. So you can see on all 3 of these covers that immediately the message is sent to give them the message what this book is about, because nowadays, mouse in hand, people can whiz by your cover in just a few seconds. It's actually quite scary. Now, some books sell 2 things, the author and the topic. If that applies to you, then you are the product as well as the information that you're trying to convey. And your picture and the topic belong on the cover because the buyer is interested in the message as well as the expert who delivers that message. Now, if your book is a series, now we're looking at the cover here, 10 Shoes Up. This is fiction, but it also applies to nonfiction book. If your book is part of a series, you should write all of the titles in your series before the books are written and before the first cover is designed. Because what you want to do in a series of books is establish a clear brand so that when your next book comes out 6 months or a year from now, or sometimes even longer time, buyers will recognize that, oh, yeah, I have the first book. That was pretty good. I'll buy the next book too. So as you can see in these examples, 10 Shoes Up is a novel from Phoenix author Gary Stewart. On the right are 4 concepts for the second book in his series. The fonts are the same, the background pictures and the colors change, but it's still clear that any one of these concepts belongs with the first concept. And that's a very important connection to make for your buyers in this very busy world where we're interrupted every minute of every day. So once the manuscript is complete, you're no longer a writer. And this is very important. You are now the owner of a publishing business. Once you know what you're selling and who you're selling it to, it's time to think like a publisher. When publishers design a book cover, they don't care what the author wants. They don't care what the designer likes. They only care about what buyers will like. And they find out what buyers will like by doing research. And you can do the same. It's easy to find out what the public likes. Easier than ever. We can now go online and look at what they are buying, the best sellers. So to get a sense of what your cover should look like, step 1 is to study the best-selling books in your genre. Look at upcoming releases from major publishers. Maybe talk to the buyer at your local bookstore. Then share this information with your cover designer so the two of you can emulate the look and feel of these successful books on your cover. Now, we're not going to copy them, but we're going to emulate them because we want to make an emotional connection in the mind of the buyer that your book is just as good as these bestsellers. In this way, you can borrow the bestseller's credibility for your title. So in the business books here on slide number 11, the design is straightforward. Classic fonts telegraph the message that the advice inside is reliable. You can see 3 concepts here. One of the concepts is a white cover, classic fonts with just a small iconic image of a pencil. That's a very popular business book concept. The middle book is also a very popular concept in business books. It's a really bright citrusy color background, again here with a small iconic image. Another popular business book concept is to use bands of color. Again, but all of these have very classic fonts. So when people are looking for a business book, Amazon is going to put these bestsellers up, even if people go to Amazon and type in your title. So if your cover emulates these designs, it's going to look like it belongs with the bestsellers, and people will feel safe when they buy your book. Now, in slide 12 here, I've got mystery and suspense bestsellers up, just again to make a point that in these books, the colors are bold and the type is very in your face and it's not to be ignored. We can almost feel our blood pressure rising when we look at these books, right? Nobody has to tell us that this is going to be an exciting title. Now go to slide 13. In these religious and spiritual books, the look is entirely different. In these books, the colors are soft. The light emanates from the background. The type is very understated. Well, these books look heavenly, don't they? So again, I'm trying to demonstrate that your book has to look like the others produced by the major publishers. So once we have an idea about how the cover should look, we need to think about the things that make a cover work, and that is your cover text. Remember, buyers haven't worked on the manuscript along with you. They don't know a thing about your book yet. We have to tell them what your book is about. Is it going to entertain them? Is it going to educate them? Is it going to help them solve a problem that they have in their life? If your cover text answers these questions in the affirmative, then buyers will happily purchase your book. If we don't answer these questions, or if we confuse them, they're going to browse along to other people's books, and we certainly don't want that to happen. So how do we answer those questions? Primarily with the title. Your title should be short and straight to the point. It should make a promise. Short words and titles will lend themselves to good design, eye-catching design. And short titles are important too because they're easy for everyone to remember and easy for you and everybody else to say. And you're going to be saying it a lot. Now in nonfiction, compelling titles don't always tell us enough. If you look at this book on slide 17, The Daniel Plan, the title doesn't really tell us much, right? The colors on the cover are starting to give us an idea that maybe this is a spiritual book. The cross in the letter D reinforces that idea, but we still don't know what we've got. In this book, the subtitle is needed to explain what the title is telling us. This subtitle, 40 Days to a Healthier Life, deliberately sends a biblical message to buyers. It was not an accident that they chose 40 days. It wasn't 27 days. It wasn't 62 days. It was 40 days, a number that's found frequently in the Bible. So that reinforces the spiritual message. You should pack your title and your subtitle with lots and lots of keywords that buyers may be searching for, so that if they're on Google looking for information, even if they're not looking for a book at that moment, your book will pop up in the search results. Look at all the keywords on this cover across the top. They're a little hard to see, but what he has listed here is faith, food, fitness, focus, friends, healthier life. All of those topics are highly searched on Amazon. So it's easy to understand how this book became a bestseller. Now, once you know what you're going to say on your book cover, how do you arrange those words? Your cover design should have a clear hierarchy so that the reader gets the most important information first. Why? Because our eyes naturally go to the largest and the brightest item on any page. Unless you're already famous, your name should be pretty small because people aren't looking for you if you're not famous yet. They are looking for information. They're looking for your topic. In slide 18, you can see the Super Shred Diet is gigantic on the cover. In this case, the author is famous, and so he included his picture. But he's still putting the emphasis on the title to let people know immediately what this book is about. Now, your cover design also has to capture the mood of the book, as on slide 19. On the left, the photo and the title tell us that this is not going to be a happy title. The colors tell us this isn't going to be a happy story, right? In the middle book, look at the look and feel is entirely different. We know that we're going to laugh when we read this book. And on the right, the cover design tells us that the text inside is a sentimental story about friendship. So everything that goes on your cover has purpose. None of it is random. None of it has anything to do with your personal taste, with the designer's personal taste. It all is part of a strategy to get people to buy your book. Now, sometimes people will ask me, what if I have endorsements? Should I put endorsements on the front cover of my book? And my advice in that regard is if you have an endorsement from someone really famous, like the President of the United States or Oprah Winfrey or Dr. Phil, then you can put the endorsement on the front cover. Otherwise, you could put the endorsement on the back cover or inside the book. You want to avoid clutter on your cover as much as possible because remember, people are whizzing by in just about 3 seconds. If you put too many messages on your cover, they're going to get confused, they're not going to read them, and they're going to move on to somebody else's book. So what about the back cover? If the front cover has done its job, it will, and the back cover text can also be used on Amazon, then it pulls the buyer around to the back cover. The back cover is where you close the sale, right? The front cover stops people in their tracks. The back cover explains to them what your book is about. Every word counts on the back cover. If it doesn't sell your book, don't say it. How many words should you put on the back cover? Once upon a time, buyers would have to read 700 words on the back cover. That's not the case anymore. Today, buyers want their information fast and they want it quick. and concise. So I recommend 250 to 300 words tops on your back cover. And that includes the headline, the summary, the bullet points, the call to action, everything on the back cover. Sometimes people ask me, should my bio go on the back cover? The answer to that is it depends. If your bio establishes your credibility to write the book, then yes, put your bio on the back cover. Otherwise, just put it inside the book. Should you put your author photo on the back cover? Unless your face is well known and you're a TV personality, my answer to that is no. Don't waste your time and space on the back cover with your photo. Use every square inch of space on that back cover to sell your book. Now, today the spine of a book is not as important as it used to be because many books are purchased online. But at some point in time, that book is going to wind up on a shelf, the buyer's shelf. So the spine should be designed. Hopefully you have a thick enough book that a design can be applied to the spine. But the purpose of the spine is to make your book title visible from a distance. It has to catch the eye. So you should use as few words as possible and use them as large as possible and bring in as many design elements as the size of the spine allows to make that book stand out when it's on the shelf. In a bookstore, of course, most every book is shelved spine out, and sometimes that's the only tool that you have at your disposal to attract the eye of the buyer. So do pay attention to your spine. Don't give that, don't make that a last-minute thing that you just do in a hurry. So as you can see, there's a lot to think about on your cover. Your cover is the focus of your marketing effort. Every tweet, every blog post, every press release that you send out is going to bring buyers directly to your cover. You have just one chance to capture their attention and hold it long enough to convince them that they need to buy your book, which sounds like an overwhelming task, right? But that's what book cover designers like myself and like many other good people in the industry are trained to do. So here are some of the things that you need to think about when you design your book cover. The next few slides, what I've done is I've pulled up some self-published do-it-yourself covers so that you can see the difference between the do-it-yourself job and the professional job. One thing you can do before you even begin your book cover design is to type your title into Amazon and see what pops up. See what Amazon's computer is going to show when people type in your title. That's what I did with the next 3 books. You can see the do-it-yourself cover on the left. Where is Baby? Has no emotion. The colors are drab. The baby isn't smiling. The photo is poorly lit. But when I typed in Where is Baby in Amazon, look at what Amazon popped up. The cover on the right. It's delightful, isn't it? A great title, professional illustration, lots of color, a childlike font. All of these elements work together to make us want this book. So I think you could clearly see which book people would buy if they were given the choice between these 2 covers. In the next example, the typography on your cover also has to be correct and dramatic. In these 2 examples, the do-it-yourself cover on the left fails in the typography department. The title's too long, the font is difficult to read, there's entirely too much imagery in the background of this cover. We don't know where to look first. On the right, also a vampire book, the title is much easier to read. It looks distressed but not corny, and that's a crucial difference. There's a fine line between picking a font that you think looks appropriate for your subject matter and going over the cliff and picking a corny font. So the bright image below the title on the book on the right seems to reflect the light into the subtitle. So this cover is very well done. Now, finally in slide 28, the do-it-yourself cover on the left doesn't express the correct mood of the book. When I typed in the description of Lucy's Christmas Miracle on Amazon, it tells me that this book is a heartwarming story about the rescue of a toddler. But this doesn't look like a heartwarming cover design to me. Look at what Amazon popped up. The cover on the right has greeting card imagery, greeting card typography. It immediately tells us this book is filled with heartwarming stories. We don't have to guess. We know what we're going to get. Now, in slide 29, the hierarchy, as I said before, is also important on your cover. The cover on the left was designed by a general graphic designer, not a cover designer. That's important for you to remember because sometimes people will hire just a general graphic designer to do their cover, and even though they are talented in other areas of graphic design, such as brochures or annual reports or booklets, they may not be able to do a book cover design well. So the cover on the left has no hierarchy. It has poor type. Nothing really pops. The title doesn't stand out. The torn paper border cramps the image. It really doesn't serve a purpose. And the oversized gold key actually draws the eye away from the title, which is something we never want to do. In the redesign on the right, the border is gone. The title treatment now employs 3 different colors, 3 different type sizes, so that it's the first thing that pops off the cover. The huge key is gone and it's replaced with a more subtle graphic. And the colors in the dog's tie in the background were changed to match the graphic and give the cover a unified look. And I think you would agree that that cover on the right is much more effective in selling this book. So now that we've gone through all these examples, how do you go about finding the right cover designer? I always recommend that you choose a designer who specializes in book covers, as I said, because creating a book cover takes a lot of practice, years of practice. And that's something that will give you the best results. You can look at the designer's portfolio online today, which is great. We used to have to walk around the city with this great big leather cases in our hands. Fortunately, we don't have to do that anymore. We can put our portfolio online. But my suggestion is not to just look at the portfolio in isolation, but open up 2 windows on your browser. Compare the designer's portfolio to the bestsellers on Amazon, and that will tell you whether the designer can work at that level. Because if you just look at the portfolio by itself, it can look fine. But if you compare it to the bestsellers, then you'll know what level the designer is able to work on. And finally, I always recommend that you call the designer, get to know the human being behind the website, and make sure that you have good chemistry with them, right? This is kind of a mystery, you know how it is. Sometimes you get along with people, sometimes you don't. It's very important to talk to the designer and make sure that you can communicate with each other. There's no substitute for that conversation. So once you've got the designers on the line, what you might want to talk about is, what am I going to get? Designers are independent business owners who work in a variety of different ways. The important thing is to clarify expectations up front so that there are no surprises. You should ask the designer about their process. Ask them about their rates. Ask them about their turnaround time. Don't be shy and don't assume that the designer is going to do what you expect unless you come out and say it. If you have a firm deadline, please let the designer know during the first conversation, because especially at this time of year, we're very busy and we want to make sure that we can meet that deadline for you. We need to schedule the work so that we can meet your needs. One important thing to clarify with the designer is the difference between concepts and variations. If you look at slide 33, this slide shows 3 distinctly different design approaches. A concept gives you a choice of directions that your cover design might follow. Usually, multiple concepts are presented, and then one of those concepts is chosen for further refinement. On slide 34, you can see these 3 covers are variations. One concept has been altered in just minor ways, the color. Concepts take more time to develop than variations. Some low-cost designers would call these variations concepts. So you want to be sure you know what you're getting. Are you going to get 3 uniquely different ideas, or are you just going to get one idea that's colorized in a different way? It's an important question to ask. Now, no matter what your designer creates, I can tell you from experience, there are always going to be revisions. Ask your designer how many revisions are included in the quote. Watch out for the words unlimited revisions or reasonable revisions. There's no such thing as unlimited revisions. Nobody works an unlimited amount of time for a flat fee. How many revisions are reasonable? Maybe the designer thinks 3 rounds of revisions are reasonable. Maybe you think 8 rounds of revisions are reasonable. Talk about that. Get it out in the open so that in the middle of the job, the designer doesn't tell you, oh, by the way, we need more money because we've now spent as much time as we can on your cover. You need to protect yourself and talk about this. Don't assume. Both of you need to be clear about the expectations for the job. So that is the end of my prepared remarks. If you have any questions, I would love to take them right now, either on the website or by telephone. And so now it's your turn to speak up.